Tessa, Lukashen is here. Wow, his figure is just too perfect. His fingers are half the length of a steering wheel. This man is literally my dream guy. Just as I snapped back to reality, I heard the excited voice of my best friend Margosu beside me. I was dazed for a moment before realizing I had been reborn. Reborn back to the day of the cruise ship accident in my past life. My best friend Margosu is a top-tier green TB*TCH, a natural-born love expert. When she sets her sights on a man, there's basically no chance of failure. After accidentally running into Lukashen, the CEO of a partner company, at work, she was utterly smitten. Without hesitation, she dumped her current boyfriend and set her sights on seducing Lukashen. When she found out Lukashen was hosting a 5-day, 4-night banquet on this cruise ship, she immediately pulled strings to get 2 tickets. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, there's a high probability she'll succeed in her conquest. But the unexpected happened. The cruise ship was in trouble. Since most people on the cruise were either wealthy or influential, the safety measures on board were naturally excellent, with even helicopters in the sky. Under normal circumstances, even if the ship sank, everyone on board could be rescued safely. In her previous life, Margosu died. She was an excellent swimmer. This shouldn't have happened, but she was too reckless. After falling into the water, I grabbed 2 lifebuoys and handed one to her, but she refused because she had spotted Lukashen nearby. While on the cruise ship, she had already found an opportunity to strike up a conversation with Lukashen. Therefore, she was certain that Lukashen would come down to save her. At that time, she could openly wrap her arms around Lukashen's neck and flirt with him freely. Tessa, you go ahead and don't worry about me. Lukashen will definitely come down to save me, Margosu said with a confident and composed expression. Then she threw the other lifebuoy far away, but she forgot. This was the ocean, not a swimming pool. I had already boarded the lifeboat when she was still waiting for Lukashen to come down and play the hero, but none of us knew that Lukashen was afraid of water. At that moment, the whirlpool caused by the sinking cruise ship pulled Margosu's body toward it. Only then did Margosu panic and cry for help, shouting loudly, "Lukashen, save me." Lukashen naturally wouldn't jump into the water to save her. The lifeguard heard her voice and rushed toward her swiftly, yet she deliberately pushed him away, saying, "I don't want you to save me. I want Lukashen to save me." That slight push was all it took to cost her the last chance at survival. The whirlpool completely engulfed her. By the time the lifeguards rescued her and attempted resuscitation, it was already too late. Margosu, the love expert, thus fell into an eternal slumber in the deep sea. She was also the only fatality at the scene of the accident. I was utterly shocked and deeply saddened for a long time after learning about Margosu's death. I kept regretting not insisting more forcefully that she wear that lifebuoy at the time. My boyfriend Troy Jiang stayed by my side throughout that period, caring for me with gentle attentiveness. He kept telling me, "Tessa, it's not your fault. You must stop blaming yourself." 3 years later, I gradually forgot the pain of that time and married Troy Jiang. Married life, though ordinary, was warm and sweet, until the day our daughter turned 1 month old. That day, in the brief moment I went to prepare her bottle, she disappeared, just as I was panicking. I received a text message from Troy Jiang. He told me to go to the top floor of the apartment. I thought he was there with his daughter, enjoying the sunlight, but when I arrived, I saw him holding his daughter's tiny body over the edge of the rooftop. She could fall and shatter into pieces at any moment. "Honey, what are you doing?" At that moment, my heart leaped into my throat. Troy Jiang, however, looked at me with a cold sneer. "Tessalin, why wasn't it you who died that day? If it weren't for your jealousy of Margot and stealing her lifebuoy, how could she have died in that accident?" I shook my head desperately. "Honey, that's not true. She threw the lifebuoy away herself." I didn't kill Margosu. Troy Jiang didn't believe my words. "Margot isn't stupid. How could she possibly throw away the lifebuoy in that situation? It's just that you're jealous she's prettier and more popular than you, so you took the chance to deliberately harm her. Do you want this bastard child to live? Jump from here, and I'll spare her." Listening to Troy Jiang's words, my heart was shattered. My eyes fixed unwaveringly on the little one who had no idea what was happening and even blew a bubble. Alright, I promise you, I'll jump, just don't hurt the baby. With that, I climbed onto the rooftop. Then, with a reluctant look at my daughter, I fell backward. But I never expected that Choi Jiang would actually break his promise. The moment I leaned back, he threw our daughter down with a look of satisfaction. Tessalyn, you and this bastard child both deserve to die. Go to hell and confess to Margot. With bloodshot eyes, I desperately tried to grab hold of the child. But I couldn't even touch the hem of her clothes. Just before I fell from the building and lost consciousness, another dull thud echoed in my ears. In an instant, boundless hatred surged through my heart. At this moment, the tourists were already preparing to board the ship. Margot Sue gently brushed her wavy hair aside and was also ready to go over. Seeing this, I immediately picked up my phone and said, "Margot, wait, the signal is poor at sea, let me give Troy a call." Hearing this, Margot Sue's eyes flickered slightly, and she nodded. Looking at my expression, there was a hint of unease. I suddenly realized, at this time in my previous life, Margot Sue and Troy Jiang might have already gotten together, but that was normal. After all, ever since we were kids, whenever any boy talked to me a few more times, before long, they would all be flocking around Margot Sue to say I was jealous. Yes, that did happen, but what I felt for Margot Sue was mostly gratitude. Because when I was little and my mother was seriously ill, it was Margot Sue who begged her mother to lend my family money, saving my mom's life. I'm not an ungrateful wretch. So all these years, even knowing I was just a sidekick by Margot Sue's side, I didn't mind. Without Margot Sue, I would have been an orphan long ago. I always remember that it was she who saved my mother's life. As for Troy Jiang, when I first introduced him to Margot Sue, I was very nervous. Worried that he might fall in love with her like other guys did. Troy Jiang, however, behaved with great restraint and later even claimed he didn't like girls like Margot Sue, who were overly fond of dressing up too meticulously. He said he preferred someone gentle and nurturing like me, urging me not to overthink it. I was utterly convinced I had found my perfect match. Little did I know, his words were nothing but lies. Unbeknownst to me, he had already fallen deeply for Margot Sue. With a cold laugh in my heart, I gave Troy Jiang a call. "Troy, something urgent came up and I need to rush back to the office. Margot has 2 tickets, and it'd be a shame to waste them. Why don't you go with her?" I said to Troy Jiang. Troy Jiang agreed without hesitation. "Alright, I just finished what I was working on. Where are you guys? I'll head over right now." My gaze held a hint of mockery. "Finished with your work?" If I remember correctly, Troy Jiang happens to be occupied with a very important project right now. In my past life, it was precisely because of this project that he got promoted to general manager. But this time, when he heard he could spend 5 days and 4 nights alone with Margot Sue, he actually said he was done with his work. And this is called not liking a refined girl like Margot Sue. Now he forgets about avoiding suspicion. Men, they really are all unreliable. After hanging up the phone, I turned to Margot Sue with an apologetic look and said, "Margot, I'm sorry, something urgent came up at work, so I can't go on vacation with you. But don't worry, Troy Jiang happens to be free, and I've already asked him to come keep you company." Hearing this, Margot Sue gave me a surprised glance. Then she teased, "You're letting your boyfriend come with me, and you're okay with that?" I smiled gently at her and replied, "What are you talking about? He doesn't like girls as pretty as you. I trust him completely. Besides, even a rabbit doesn't eat the grass by its own burrow," I said with some pride. Margot Sue raised her eyebrows upon hearing this. "And there are men who don't like pretty girls, TSK. Only a little fool like you would believe what he says." But clearly, there was an extra trace of mockery and disdain in her eyes. Actually, I knew that a guy like Troy Jiang, who's somewhat handsome and dashing, wouldn't even catch Margot Sue's eye these days. After all, every boyfriend she's ever dated has had both looks and wealth. Only the handsome ones can meet her standards, only the wealthy can satisfy her material desires. Troy Jiang is quite a good match for me. But for Margot Sue, who has seen it all, it's probably nothing special. Margot Sue wore a slightly mocking expression, likely because she had already been involved with Troy Jiang and thus found his hypocritical words somewhat contemptible. Pursing my lips, I waved at Margot Sue and then turned to leave in a hurry. I didn't leave right away. Instead, she found a secluded spot to wait for Choi Jiang. In less than half an hour, Choi Jiang arrived. When he saw Margot Su, a gentle smile appeared on his usually composed face. Margot. Choi Jiang quickly stepped forward and reached for Margot Su's hand, as if they were a couple. Margot Su, however, brushed his hand away and asked something. Choi Jiang then immediately began coaxing Margot Su with playful appeasement. I guess Margot Su must have been asking whether it was true that he didn't like pretty girls. Soon after, Choi Jiang wrapped his arm around Margot Su's slender waist, and the two left together like a perfect pair. At that moment, a sea breeze blew past. I inhaled the damp, salty air and smirked mockingly in the direction of the cruise ship. Margot Su's target is Lucashan. I can't wait to see how Choi Jiang feels when he watches the person he loves flirt with another man right in front of him. An hour later, the cruise ship set sail. I watched the fading silhouette of the cruise ship with indifference, then turned and went home to sleep. At 5 o'clock the next morning, just as in my previous life, the cruise ship met with disaster. Fortunately, the accident occurred at dawn, making the rescue operation relatively straightforward. This was also the main reason why, apart from Margot Su, who had brought about her own demise, everyone else was quickly rescued in my past life. If it had been midnight, the rescue might not have gone so smoothly. When news of the cruise ship accident came, I rushed to the dock immediately. Every time a lifeboat arrived, I anxiously rushed forward. After searching 5 or 6 lifeboats in a row, I still couldn't find Margot Su and Choi Jiang. Just as I was secretly wondering, another lifeboat arrived. I rushed forward and soon saw Margot Su and Choi Jiang holding each other. Margot, Troy, are you okay? I heard the cruise ship was wrecked. I was scared to death. Thank goodness you're both safe, I said tearfully, looking at them. But when I looked up, I saw Choi Jiang giving me a look full of disgust. That look was exactly the same as when he forced me to jump off the building using our daughter. But when he looked down at Margot Su, his eyes were filled with the joy of having regained what was lost. I suddenly realized, Choi Jiang had also been reborn. Knowing that Choi Jiang had also been reborn, I couldn't help but think to myself, this is perfect, past events and memories. If Choi Jiang knows nothing, what's the point of my revenge? I want him to live this life with the guilt of having killed his own daughter, a fate worse than death. Tessalin, you must be disappointed to see Margot unharmed, aren't you? Choi Jiang said coldly to me at that moment. I pretended to be clueless as I looked at him. What nonsense are you talking about, Troy? I couldn't be happier that Margot is fine. How could I be disappointed? My face was filled with confusion and the grievance of being wronged. Choi Jiang, however, snorted coldly. Luckily, it was me who went with Margot this time. Otherwise, you would have gotten her killed. I looked at him in bewilderment. Troy, I don't understand what you're saying. Enough. I don't want to hear another word from a woman as malicious as you. We're breaking up. Just looking at you makes me sick now. Choi Jiang spat out with disgust. Not even bothering to pretend anymore, he immediately picked up Margot Su in a hurry and quickly walked towards the ambulance. Margot Su looked at me anxiously. Tessa, I'm sorry. I don't know how he suddenly became like this. Choi Jiang, however, turned to her and said, Margot, what's the point of talking to a woman like Tessalin, who has such a malicious heart? She's always been jealous of you. You mustn't be fooled by her innocent appearance. Margot Su let out a delicate gasp. How could that be? Tessa is my best friend. You're just too naive and kind-hearted, always thinking the best of everyone. Choi Jiang's eyes were filled with tender affection. I stood there dumbfounded, watching their retreating figures. Suddenly, Margot Su turned her head and gave me a faint, seemingly triumphant smile. Then she nestled weakly into Choi Jiang's embrace. But when it comes to this experience, Margot Su was indeed filled with lingering fear. In the past, to impress a handsome and well-built swimmer, she had specifically learned how to swim, so she was somewhat confident in her swimming skills. Therefore, when she fell into the water, although she panicked for a moment, she quickly regained her composure. Moreover, since she had already successfully met Lucashan the night before, when she spotted him nearby, she immediately pushed the lifebuoy away and loudly called out Lucashan's name for help. Little did she expect that Luca-san completely ignored her and instead sent a lifeguard to rescue her. Unexpectedly, a whirlpool suddenly formed around her, pulling her underwater, the moment seawater flooded her mouth and nose. She panicked completely and began struggling desperately. It was at this moment that Choi Jiang rushed over and saved her without hesitation. When she was rescued, her eyes were red with relief, as if she had found some long-lost treasure. It was at this moment that she began to take an interest in Choi Jiang. A man willing to risk his life for her is far rarer than one who is willing to spend money on her. So, Tessalin, sorry, but I'm taking your boyfriend, to avoid arousing Choi Jiang's suspicion. After a moment of stunned silence, I quickly ran over to find them. Troy, why are you breaking up with me out of the blue? I looked at him pitifully. Choi Jiang glared at me impatiently. Tessalin, get the hell away from me. The one I've always loved is Margot. I immediately shook my head with tears in my eyes. Impossible. Didn't you say you didn't like Margot? Choi Jiang looked at me mockingly at this moment. Why don't you take a look at yourself and see what part of you can compare to Margot? I was just trying to spare your feelings by comforting you on purpose. Any man would know who to choose between you and Margot if you stood side by side. If I were you, I would have been ashamed of myself long ago. How could you have the nerve to be friends with someone as beautiful as Margot? I looked at him with a visibly devastated expression. Then, I turned to Margot Sue with a pleading gaze. Margot, you don't like him, right? As soon as these words were spoken, Choi Jiang glared at me in anger. Tessalin, you still claim you're not malicious. You know full well Margot is kind-hearted and would never say anything to hurt you. You're just trying to emotionally manipulate Margot on purpose. I just stared fixedly at Margot Sue. After a moment, Margot Sue looked at me helplessly, seemingly apologetic, but her eyes were full of smugness. Sorry, Tessa. I never expected Choi Jiang to love me so much that he'd risk his life to save me. He's different from all the other guys I've dated before. It's only now that I've truly seen my own heart. Choi Jiang's face instantly lit up with wild joy. I, on the other hand, stared at her in disbelief, taking several steps back, but as I retreated, I accidentally bumped into someone. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I quickly turned around with tearful eyes to apologize. Looking up, I met a cold and stern face. It was Luca-san. With such a major incident happening on the cruise ship, as the organizer, he naturally had to step forward to reassure the passengers. It's all right. Luca-san's slender hands firmly steadied my arm, and after his appearance, Margot Sue's attention was clearly entirely focused on Luca-san. At this moment, Margot Sue was gazing at Luca-san with tender affection. She seemed a bit inclined to get down from Choi Jiang. Clearly, had she known Luca-san would come, she wouldn't have said those things earlier. Luca-san, you're here. But Luca-san merely glanced indifferently at Margot Sue before instructing his secretary beside him to ensure all injured passengers were sent to the hospital as quickly as possible. I didn't linger any longer. After casting one last heartbroken glance at the two of them, I wiped away my tears and decisively walked away. Even if Choi Jiang doesn't break up with her today, she'll eventually find a reason to end things with him. Margot Sue loves proving her charm by conquering men. If she were to actually be with Choi Jiang, she might even pause her conquests. She's curious to see just how much of Choi Jiang's affection can withstand Margot Sue's repeated squandering. That night, Margot Sue hypocritically called me again. Pretending to apologize, I replied calmly, Margot, I'm truly grateful that you saved my mother back then. But all these years I've worked tirelessly for you, which should be enough to repay your kindness. I wish you and Choi Jiang a long and happy life together. From now on, we are no longer friends. With that, I hung up the phone and blocked both of their numbers. May you two scumbags stay together forever. After quickly composing myself, I turned on my computer to draft my resignation letter and reached out to the headhunter who had contacted me a few days ago. I work at the same company as Choi Jiang, but we're in different departments. After Margot Sue's incident in my past life, I was completely devastated and gave up on my career, but I'm also a top graduate from Tsinghua University, and I often get approached by headhunters trying to poach me. The salary offers are more than 3 times what I'm making now. At that time, I wanted to commute to and from work with Choi Jiang. So I declined. This time, I won't give up my job for anyone again. The headhunter consultant quickly got in touch with me and sent the recruitment materials from the company. However, what I didn't expect was that this company turned out to be the Shun Group. Shun Group is the company where Lukashen works. When Margot Su first took a liking to Lukashen, she actually considered working at Shun Group to increase the chances of running into him. However, the hiring standards at Shun Group were too high. Margot Su is beautiful, but in high school, she was too busy with relationships and ended up only getting into a third-tier college. She submitted her resume, but didn't even make it past the initial screening stage, even though the job she was applying for was just a receptionist position at Shun Group. These days, there are truly many women who are both beautiful and highly educated. Margot Su may be attractive and emotionally intelligent, but the first thing HR looks at is educational qualifications. By the time I completed my resignation procedures, Choi Jiang still hadn't returned to work at the company. Some of his colleagues who knew about my relationship with Choi Jiang saw me and were still asking where Choi Jiang had gone. I simply replied indifferently, "Sorry, Choi Jiang and I have broken up. I don't know where he is now." Then I left, carrying my small cardboard box. A week later, I joined the headquarters of Shun Group as the executive assistant to the CEO, responsible for assisting Lukashen in organizing and analyzing various data, as well as gathering market information. When Lukashen saw me, he was slightly surprised. "It's you." I gave him a faint nod and said, "Hello, Mr. Shun, I'm the new assistant, Tessalin." Lukashen nodded slightly at me. The other secretaries and the executive assistant also came over to greet me. After that, everyone officially got busy with their work. Processing data is a tedious task, but for me, it feels relaxing. After a busy morning, I didn't think about Margot Su and Choi Jiang even once. I didn't snap out of it until the CEO's special assistant tapped on my desk. It was time for lunch. A few days later, I had fully adapted to the fast-paced work environment at Shun Corporation. One day after work, as soon as I got home, I saw Choi Jiang standing at my doorstep. When he saw me return, Choi Jiang's face darkened. "Did you resign?" I looked at him somewhat strangely and replied coldly, "What else? You do have some self-awareness, Tessalin. Margot Su is still willing to be friends with you. That's your good fortune. How dare you block her and make her upset?" Choi Jiang glared at me with disgust. "If it weren't for Margot, I wouldn't have come looking for you." I couldn't help but sneer. "Did you come here today just to spout this nonsense at me? It was you who said you didn't like Margot Su before, and now suddenly you're breaking up with me. I don't even know when the two of you got together, and now you have the nerve to come here and question why I blocked you." Choi Jiang's face darkened at my words. "Tessalin, don't you dare slander Margot Su like that. Margot Su kept her distance from me out of respect for you. It was me who couldn't control my feelings and fell for her. Margot Su is innocent. The reason I broke up with you is simply because I saw through your venomous heart. You've long been jealous that Margot is prettier and more popular than you. If it weren't for me this time, Margot might have been killed by you when she fell into the water. Me, with a venomous heart, Pa, even a vicious tiger wouldn't harm its own cub. Yet you, Choi Jiang, had the audacity to throw your own daughter off the rooftop, who truly has a heart of venom and a soul of scorpions. Don't forget, Choi Jiang, you were already cozying up with Margot Su while we were still together. No matter how silver-tongued you are, it won't change the fact that both of you betrayed me with your disloyalty and injustice. I don't want to see you anymore. Get the hell away from my doorstep right now." I glared coldly at Choi Jiang. I wished I could tear him apart and devour his flesh, but I suppressed the hatred in my heart, not letting Choi Jiang see that I had also been reborn. Hearing me say this, Choi Jiang's gaze grew even colder. "If Margot hadn't been worried about you and asked me to check on you, do you think I would have come? You poisonous woman, you don't deserve Margot's concern." With that, Choi Jiang left with a cold snort. I could only find it laughable. Margot Su would worry about me. I'm afraid it was deliberately given to Choi Jiang to provoke me, just to make me feel worse. Right, unfortunately, she is destined to be disappointed. If it were the me from my past life, I would have been very hurt and become even more insecure. But in this life, I won't be. Margot Sue might be great, but I'm definitely not bad either. She may be prettier than me and better at flirting with men, but I have a higher education, and my career is doing very well now. Given that, why should I envy or be jealous of Margot Sue? As I became more familiar with the work, I grew increasingly faster at handling data. Several executive assistants gradually began to respect me. Lukashen relied on me even more. That day, Lukashen was going out to discuss a collaboration. Wait for me to bring in the documents. Then he said to me, "Assistant Lin, come with me to Pentium later to discuss a collaboration." Hearing this, I was a bit surprised but quickly nodded in agreement. And Pentium is the company where Margot Sue works. I knew that if Margot Sue hadn't given up on Lukashen yet, she would definitely appear in front of him. I guessed right. Just as Lukashen was discussing cooperation with the CEO of Pentium, Margot Sue came in smiling, carrying tea. However, when she saw me, her expression faltered for a moment before she resumed her usual demeanor and entered to pour the tea. After preparing the tea, Margot Sue quietly excused herself and left. It's true that she knows how to charm men, but she's always had a good sense of boundaries. She wouldn't be so tactless as to cause annoyance on such a formal occasion and jeopardize the collaboration between the two companies. However, before leaving, she gave me a cold glance. After signing the contract, I followed Lukashen out of the Pentium building. Not long after, I received a text message from Margot Sue. "Tessa, even if you're angry with me, there's no need to spitefully go after Lukashen. He's not someone you should even think about." Seeing Margot Sue's text message, I sneered and deleted it. Why shouldn't I be worthy of thinking about Lukashen? As if all the good men in the world are only meant for her. Margot Sue, of course. I also know that there's a world of difference between me and Lukashen, but just because of Margot Sue's words, I won't give her the chance to get close to Lukashen. 6 months later, I had firmly established myself at the headquarters of the Shun Group, thanks to my sensitivity to data, quick reactions, and fluency in several languages. Lukashen often took me to various evening events as his companion. At times like these, I am especially grateful to my past self who studied so hard. If I hadn't studied diligently and acquired so much knowledge and skills, how would I have the opportunity to stand beside someone like Lukashen now? Moreover, my colleagues are all outstanding, and working alongside them has made me increasingly aware of my own worth. Margot Sue's high emotional intelligence and romantic skills are her strengths. But strong professional competence is my own capability. The annual gala of the Shun Corporation arrived soon. Having received a 6-figure year-end bonus, I was in high spirits and couldn't resist having a couple more drinks. At that moment, Lukashen's personal assistant suddenly approached me and whispered, "Tessalin, could you take Mr. Shun back to the presidential suite upstairs later? I have something urgent to attend to and need to leave first." I paused for a moment, then nodded. "All right, got it." Then he put down his wine glass and went to find Lukashen. Lukashen had also been plied with quite a bit of alcohol today. Although his complexion still looked fine, the roots of his ears had already turned red. "President Shun, let me escort you upstairs to rest." The annual meeting was held at a hotel owned by the Shun family, where there was a presidential suite reserved specifically for Lukashen. Lukashen nodded, staggering slightly as he stood up. I quickly steadied him, and we immediately entered the elevator from the banquet hall. Once inside the elevator, Lukashen suddenly stared at me and asked, "Did your boyfriend cheat on you?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but freeze in surprise. Then he gave a faint hum in response. "Then his taste is a bit off," Lukashen said. I couldn't help but stare at him in shock. Then it dawned on me. He was actually insulting Troy Jiang, so I couldn't help but curl my lips and say, "I thought so too." As we spoke, the elevator had already arrived. I helped Lukashen to the door of the presidential suite, swiped the card, and entered the room. By the time I got Lukashen to the edge of the bed, the alcohol was kicking in, and I was feeling a bit dizzy too. Lukashen stumbled at that moment, pulling me down with him. I fell right on top of Lukashen. Looking up, I saw his sharp jawline clearly. "Mr. Shun." I hurriedly tried to get up. Lukashen's hand suddenly landed on the small of my back. Our eyes met, and the atmosphere in the air gradually grew tense. Thinking of Margot Sue's covetous gaze toward Lukashen, a surge of wicked courage rose within me. When I woke up the next day, my mind was in a daze. Awake, Lukashen's voice sounded beside my ear. I turned my stiff neck towards him and forced an awkward smile. Mr. Shun, about last night, it was just an accident. I promise I won't take advantage of the situation to cling to you. Let's just pretend nothing happened, okay? I'm doomed, utterly doomed. Lukashen must definitely suspect that I deliberately took advantage of him while drunk to climb the social ladder. Sure enough, Lukashen's expression looks terrible. Tessalin, you actually don't want to take responsibility. I never expected you to be this kind of person, Lukashen said through gritted teeth. It was your first time. But was it not mine as well? I couldn't help but freeze in expression. This isn't what I expected. Shouldn't he be calling me a scheming woman and telling me to get out? I'm sorry, Mr. Shun. If you don't mind, I'll definitely take responsibility. Lukashen's expression finally improved quite a bit. At least you still have some conscience. Lukashen snorted lightly. I couldn't help but twitch the corner of my mouth. Then, under Lukashen's disdainful gaze, I quickly scurried forward like a little eunuch, attending to him with excessive flattery and an obsequious smile. I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that I could actually become Lukashen's girlfriend. I thought that once I woke up, I would be fired by him. Unexpectedly, Lukashen frowned at me and said, "Enough. Being my girlfriend doesn't require you to do these trivial things." I froze for a moment, then nodded. Having grown up taking care of Margot Sue and influenced by Troy Jiang's preference for nurturing, wife material types, I've long been accustomed to caring for others. Never expected that Lukashen, someone who should be used to being taken care of, would dislike this about me. Should we keep our relationship a secret then? I asked cautiously at this point. After all, I still have some self-awareness. A man of Lukashen's caliber, even if he were willing to date me, would never be allowed by the Shun family to bring in a girl from an ordinary background like me. The only reason I can date him now is thanks to his strong sense of responsibility. Lukashen, however, looked at me displeased upon hearing my words. Why hide it? Am I really that embarrassing to you? Lukashen stared at me with a heavy gaze. I couldn't help but stare at him in shock. Then I shook my head frantically. No, Mr. Shun. That's not what I meant. You're still calling me Mr. Shun. Lukashen. I mean, being able to date you is already me reaching beyond my station. It's not that I feel unworthy of you. I'm just afraid people would laugh at you for having poor taste if word got out. I quickly explained. If I were a stunning beauty like Margot Sue, I'd surely be confident standing by Lukashen's side. But the truth is, I'm just a pretty girl next door, not some great beauty. Whether you're worthy or not is for me to decide. What does it matter what others think? You're great. What makes you think you're not good enough for me? Lukashen's expression was surprisingly serious. I stared at him in a daze. I never expected Lukashen to think this way. For a moment, I couldn't help but feel my eyes slightly redden. Thank you. I never expected to receive such affirmation from Lukashen. I was just telling the truth. No need for thanks. All right. Get ready and let's go down for breakfast, Lukashen said at that moment. I nodded, my voice choked with emotion. I looked up to find Lukashen gazing at me with deep, inscrutable eyes. Instinctively, I averted my gaze and hurried to the restroom, and just like that, Lukashen and I became a couple. True to his word, he had no intention of keeping our relationship secret. So the other assistants quickly figured it out. The special assistant secretly gave me a thumbs up after finding out. I smiled somewhat sheepishly. To be honest, I really couldn't figure out why Lukashen would be willing to be with me. In modern society, relationships between men and women are no longer as conservative as they were in the past. There are plenty of cases where someone leaves irresponsibly after a one-night stand. I never expected that Lukashen would want to be with me just because we had been together once. But I quickly reminded myself not to neglect my work just because I became Lukashen's girlfriend. If Lukashen's parents found out we were together, who knows how they would try to stop us. The likelihood of breaking up is extremely high at that time, but work skills will never leave me, far more reliable than men. After seeing me with Lukashen, the assistants became even more diligent than before, full of admiration. In reality, I just never thought about being with Lukashen for the long term. However, Lukashen took this relationship much more seriously than I did. On Saturday, he actually took the initiative to take me on a date. But what I didn't expect was that we would run into Choi Jiang and Margot Su at the restaurant. When Margot Su saw me and Lukashen walking in hand, her eyes widened, and her face was full of disbelief. It never even crossed my mind that I would have the chance to be with a man as exceptional as Lukashen. And when Choi Jiang saw me with Lukashen, his expression turned sour. I merely cast a casual glance at the two of them. On my way to the restroom, as expected, I was stopped by Margot Su. "I didn't expect you to be quite capable, Tessa Lin, managing to hook a man like Lukashen." But soon, Margot Su narrowed her eyes, brimming with competitive spirit, and said, "But do you really think someone like you can keep Lukashen for more than a few days?" My heart sank. Lukashen was Margot Su's target all along. And now that she's seen me with him, she'll only become more determined to have him. No matter how many days I can keep him, at least I've been with Lukashen. I glared coldly at Margot Su. As soon as the words left my mouth, Margot Su suddenly looked aggrieved. "Tessa, I was just trying to give you good advice. A man like Lukashen would never truly be with you. He's just playing with you." Seeing her like this, I knew Choi Jiang must have arrived. Sure enough, the next moment, Choi Jiang strode over, looking at me with cold disdain. I knew it. "Tessa Lin, you're utterly malicious. If you have any tricks, come at me. What's the point of bullying Margot?" I looked at Choi Jiang with disgust. "Choi Jiang, control your girlfriend and stop her from seducing other people's boyfriends. Do you think Margot is like you, just broke up with me and immediately got together with her boss, a mediocre woman like you? If you hadn't schemed against him, why would he ever be with you?" Choi Jiang said coldly. I couldn't help but clench my fists. Before I could utter a retort, Lukashen's voice came from behind me. "Still not as good as you hooking up with Tessa's best friend before even breaking up. Besides, Tessa Lin is outstanding, and I was the one who pursued her and wanted to be with her." Lukashen stepped forward and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. Margot Su and Choi Jiang's expressions changed simultaneously. My heart ached, and I felt the urge to cry. Whether Lukashen's words were sincere or not, he had protected my dignity and pride. "Let's go, Tessa. If you keep chatting with your ex, I'll get jealous," Lukashen said with a gentle smile. Blushing with embarrassment, I nodded in agreement. Before leaving, I saw Margot Su's eyes red with jealousy. Indeed, from childhood to adulthood, almost everyone around us had always chosen Margot Su first. Today was the first time she became the one unnoticed by men. How could Margot Su possibly tolerate that? I know she definitely won't be willing to let it go at that, but it doesn't matter anymore, at least. I won't be competing with Margot Su over matters of the heart anymore. As for Lukashen, if we can be together, then we'll be together. If we can't be together, let's part on good terms. I won't foolishly love a man with all my heart like in my past life, only to be hurt so badly I lost my life. After returning to the restaurant, I looked seriously at Lukashen. "Lukashen, thank you for standing up for me earlier." Lukashen looked at me deeply. "Isn't this what a boyfriend should do? But your taste in friends is really poor." Hearing his words, I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I never expected my judgment to be so poor, to actually fall for a devil who could even bring himself to kill his own daughter, as I anticipated. Margot Su began scheming to bump into Lukashen by any means necessary. Margot Su was the epitome of femininity, gentle, charming, and highly emotionally intelligent. It was rare for any man who interacted with her not to fall under her spell. Even after breaking up, her ex-boyfriends never held it against her. Instead, they would still defend her. I thought Lukashen would eventually be drawn to Margot Su's charm like other men. But what I didn't expect was that Lukashen actually ran away as soon as he saw Margot Su's figure. "Is she some kind of sticky candy? Why is she everywhere?" Lukashen said to me with great annoyance. I couldn't help but slightly curl the corners of my mouth. "Doesn't this just prove how charming you are? Shouldn't you be happy that a beautiful woman is chasing after you?" Lukashen immediately glared at me. "Do I need a woman chasing me to prove my charm? And what, are you secretly hoping she succeeds? Are you laughing at me behind my back?" I quickly shook my head vigorously. No, no, how would I dare? I think you dare quite a bit. Lukashen suddenly leaned in close to me. I was so startled that I immediately shrank back. As a result, I could only press myself tightly against the car seat. Come to my place tonight. Lukashen's voice suddenly grew a bit hoarse. I froze for a moment, then nodded somewhat shyly. I didn't know how long I could stay with Lukashen, but I had to admit, every day with him was filled with happiness, until one morning 2 months later, when I woke up feeling suddenly nauseous. Thinking back to that time in the hotel, I woke up and forgot to take my medicine, so I couldn't help but reach down to touch my stomach. After work, I went to the pharmacy. Seeing the 2 lines, I couldn't help but freeze in shock. In my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about my daughter who had died tragically. Hatred welled up in my heart once again. Then, I picked up the phone and made a call, using a voice changer. Hey, how's your progress going? Don't worry, this girl is easy to hook. I'll have her in bed tonight. Don't forget the final payment when the time comes. No problem, I said with a cold smirk. 2 months have passed, given Margot Sue's patience. She's probably already grown tired of Troy Jiang by now. Doesn't Troy Jiang think Margot Sue is a goddess? We'll see about that. I told Lukashen about my pregnancy. I want to keep this baby. Don't worry, I'm not trying to force you into marriage. If your family doesn't want it, I can raise the child myself. I knew this child wouldn't be the same daughter from my past life, but I can't bear to. At that moment, Lukashen joyfully picked me up and spun me around. What are you thinking about? Of course we have to get married. Our child can't be called a bastard. I stared at him in complete bewilderment. But will your family agree to our marriage? Lukashen gently tapped my nose with his finger. Of course, they've known about you for a long time. I was dumbfounded once again. They don't object. Lukashen laughed. Oppose what? My parents have known for a long time that I like you. You like me? Lukashen nodded with a smile at my shocked expression. Of course, why? I looked at him in disbelief. You probably don't remember, but we've actually met before. 10 years ago, I ran away from home in a fit of anger with my parents, saying I'd rather beg on the streets than go back. My mom said no one would even give me alms if I begged. Later we made a bet. If I could beg 500 yuan, I'd go home. So I ended up really wandering the streets for several days, even copying others by making a sign that said, "Lend me 500 for travel expenses to get home." But not a single person was willing to lend me 500 yuan. Hardly anyone even gave me 1 or 5 yuan. Just when I thought I'd never make it home, 2 girls appeared in front of me. One of them looked down on me and walked away in disgust, but the other one actually gave me 500 yuan. Upon hearing Lukashen's description, I couldn't help but widen my eyes in astonishment. That beggar was you. At that time, she had just ranked first in her final exams and received 1,000 yuan as a prize. The look in that young boy's eyes was so utterly desolate and hopeless, and he kept wiping away his tears. Her heart softened, and despite Margot Sue's dissuasion, she gave him 500 yuan. What if he really couldn't return home because he had no money? After all, she had once faced a similar predicament. But who would have guessed that he was actually Lukashen, the young master of the Shen family? Fate really has a way of playing jokes. Lukashen suddenly hugged me tightly at that moment. So when I saw you on the day of the cruise ship accident, you have no idea how thrilled I was. From the moment you gave me $500, I swore I would marry you when I grew up. It's just that I never ran into you again in that place afterward. Luckily, we've met again now. I couldn't help but explain. I was later recruited by another school, so I never went back to that street. I see. Lukashen nodded. Then he added, so don't worry. My parents have known for a long time that I want to marry you. They won't object. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. Soon, Lukashen took me back to meet his parents, as expected. Both of them liked me very much and even teased Lukashen, saying that his begging had brought him a wife. Because I was pregnant, the wedding date was quickly set so that the ceremony could be completed before my pregnancy became obvious. After that, Lukashen and I became very busy. Just as Lukashen and I were busy preparing for our wedding, Troy Jiang was also following Margot Sue and discovered her affair with another man. Margot, what are you doing? Did he force you? Troy Jiang stared intently at Margot Sue. his eyes filled with obsession. He simply couldn't accept the fact that the woman he idolized had betrayed him. Margot Su looked at Choi Jiang, crossing her arms indifferently. Choi Jiang, since you've found out, let's break up. Why break up? I don't agree. For Margot Su, he had even given up Tessa Lin and the life of his own biological daughter. How could she betray him? It doesn't matter if you agree or not. I don't like you anymore, Margot Su said calmly. Hearing this, Choi Jiang immediately panicked and said, "No, Margot, just pretend I didn't notice anything. Let's not break up, okay? I can't accept a breakup. I love you." Margot Su frowned and then replied, "As you wish. Now, please leave." Choi Jiang could only glare resentfully at the man in the room before leaving dejectedly. Margot Su believed their breakup was inevitable sooner or later, but she had no idea what Choi Jiang had given up for her, and how could he possibly accept her betrayal. So when Margot Su woke up again, she found herself locked inside the house by Choi Jiang. Margot Su finally felt fear. "Choi Jiang, are you insane? This is illegal," Margot Su said sternly, but Choi Jiang simply didn't care. "Margot, there are too many bad men out there. You're only safe here with me. Your life belongs to me since I saved it," Choi Jiang said with a gentle smile as he stepped forward to caress Margot Su's face. Margot Su, however, felt nothing but chills running down her spine. She never expected Choi Jiang to be a Yanda. "Margot, have a child with me. With a child, you won't leave me anymore," Choi Jiang said with a smile. Margot Su struggled desperately, but it was no use. At this moment, she finally regretted provoking Choi Jiang, but it was already too late. 3 months later, Lucashan and I held our wedding. Meanwhile, because Margot Su went missing, her ex-boyfriends filed a police report, which eventually led them to Choi Jiang. Margot Su was found emaciated from the abuse inflicted by Choi Jiang. She was then taken to the hospital for examination. The results revealed that Margot Su was not only pregnant but also infected with the HIV virus. Upon learning of her diagnosis, Margot Su erupted into frantic screams and hysterics in the hospital room. She simply couldn't accept this outcome, and Choi Jiang, having been with her for so long, naturally couldn't escape it either. When Choi Jiang found out he had contracted the virus, he was also on the verge of losing his mind. "Margot Su, you damn woman, I'm going to kill you." At this moment, Choi Jiang finally completely believed what I had once said. He loved Margot Su, but he loved himself more. But he never expected that Margot Su had actually contracted the disease and even passed it on to him. Endless regret began to corrode Choi Jiang's heart day and night. He should have been alert the moment he discovered Margot Su's betrayal, but now, it's too late for regrets. Upon hearing about the insane actions of Margot Su and Choi Jiang, I merely curled the corner of my lips slightly. Then, I gently placed my hand on my swollen belly. "Baby, in this lifetime, you will have parents who cherish and adore you. We will treasure you like a precious jewel, protecting and caring for you all your life."